As we enter into the colder months and the final chapters of the year, I want to share with you 10 tiny ways that you can improve your life in 2022. And there really is no better time than the present to evaluate our lives and to make changes that will improve our happiness and overall well-being, both in big ways and in small. So whatever may have happened in the past few months, wherever you may be now, I hope that you'll join me in taking these small but important steps to change your life. All that it takes is willingness to change, a plan of action, and faithfulness to take small daily steps. But now let's dive in and talk through 10 practical ways that you can change your life starting today. Let's get started with the first thing that you can do. That's to organize your digital space. With all of the time that we spend these days on our phones and our computers, both for work and for fun, it is all too easy for our digital lives just to become an absolute mess. I think it's pretty common for a lot of us to have pretty organized, tidy, physical spaces. Our homes might look clean, but our digital lives, our phones, our computers, are anything but that. So if your phone or computer is a bit of a disaster phone and you have dozens, hundreds, or even thousands of completely disorganized files, why not start making a change and organizing that space today? Go through the apps on your phone, your downloads folder, your desktop, and maybe even your photos, and start deleting what you don't need and organizing the rest. A lot of us use devices on a daily basis, whether that's for work or studies, but when they're completely disorganized, it can be really difficult to use them efficiently and to find what we need. And so decluttering and organizing in the digital arena can be a really easy way that you can just kind of take one less stressor, one less source of clutter out of your life. And depending on the state that your phone or computer in, this might be a pretty large task. So what I'd really encourage you to do is just to every single day for a week or a couple of weeks, however long it takes, just to set a time limit. Maybe that's for 5 minutes, 10, or 15, and just delete, declutter, and organize as much as you can in that period of time. Before you know it, your laptop and your phone are going to be looking so good. And if you create the right systems of organization too, they'll be easy to implement going forward. All right, then the second thing that you can start doing today is to get back into a routine. And I don't know about you, but the summer always makes me veer off track a bit when it comes to my routine. Between planned travel, family coming to visit, and honestly just the heat, it seems like every single year my routines seem to get off track a bit. Not that I completely abandon them necessarily, but I practice them with nowhere near the consistency of the rest of the year. And if, like me, you found yourself getting a bit lax with your routines over the past few months, right now, as we enter the colder months, really is the perfect time to get back on track. So whether you're wanting to work out consistently, to get up at a specific time, to read daily, or anything else, what I'd really encourage you to do is to find an accountability partner, somebody who you can kind of challenge and be challenged by to stay consistent with your routine, and then just get started. Earlier this year, when I was wanting to start waking up earlier, I asked a friend of mine to help keep me accountable to waking up at 6:30 every single morning. And so my friend and I would both set our alarms at 6:30 every morning, and as soon as we get up, we'd text each other to make sure that we were both awake. And we did that for 30 days, and by the end of that time, I was really able to get into a habit where she didn't need to text me. I would just automatically set my alarm at 6:30 without even thinking about it. So whatever the routine is that you're wanting to implement, set a goal, find someone to help keep you accountable, and then just get started. Before you know it, you'll be back into a routine and practicing all of the healthy habits that you're wanting to implement. And then number 3 is to assess your finances. And as we move into the latter half of the year, now really is a great time to do a deep dive into your financial situation. Really try to look at everything and take stock of how you're doing financially. Don't just look at how much you have in your bank account, but look at if there are any debts that you're trying to pay off. Are you on track with those? What about your savings goals, any investments? And just kind of go through the list. It really is so helpful just to kind of take that step back and try to holistically look at your financial situation. And doing this now really can be a great opportunity to course correct if needed before the holidays, or even just give you reassurance that you're on track and heading towards your goals. Really getting clear on exactly how you're doing can be so helpful. And then number 4 is to give yourself a bedtime. And this one might sound a bit silly, but trust me, it's important. A lot of people I talk to have a pretty defined schedule for their mornings. They'll get up at a certain certain time, do specific activities, but their evenings are completely another story. The thing is, our evenings really are just as important as our mornings. By giving yourself a bedtime and going to sleep at a specific time every single night, it really provides you a framework for getting enough sleep so that you can be well rested for the next day. It is just a fact of life that when we don't get enough sleep, we're not able to operate at peak capacity. And for some of us, I'm raising my hand here, we're barely able to function when we don't get enough sleep. And so one of the easiest and really best things that you can do to improve your life is just to protect that time of sleep. And so personally for me, that looks like going to bed somewhere between 10:30 and 11 p.m. every single night so that I can get the 7.5 to 8 hours of sleep that I know that I need to be able to function at my best. And so I'd really encourage you just to do the math. When do you get up and how much sleep do you need? Then from there, calculate what your bedtime should be, building in a bit of margin so that you can wind down a bit before immediately falling asleep. And then just get in the habit of regularly going to bed at that time. I can honestly say this is one of those things that makes such a difference. Okay, the number 5 is to invest in relationships. Whether you consider yourself more extroverted or introverted or somewhere in between, human connection is something that we all need. Unfortunately though, all too often we'll substitute in texting, scrolling social media, or watching TV for a real person-to-person connection. And the problem is, even though that can sometimes feel like a form of connection, it's just an imitation, a pale shadow of the real thing. And so I really want to challenge you, if you find yourself defaulting to or prioritizing online interactions over real ones, to change that. Get up for coffee with a friend, host a game night, plan a day trip. There are so many things that you can do, and all of those in-person interactions really are going to enrich your life in ways that online ones never really can. This really is one of the small things that you can do that can lead to so much joy and fulfillment in your own life. Then moving on, number 6 is to schedule downtime. I think one massive lie that we've all been told living in this day and age is that the busier you are, the more you have on your plate, the more efficient, the more productive, and the happier that you'll be. But real talk, that simply isn't true. Far from leading to fulfillment, that 24/7 always on the go lifestyle is really just a recipe for burnout. Instead, we operate best when we have margin, when there's breathing room in our schedules. And so as you're planning out your days, your weeks, make sure that you're building that in. Something that I really like to do is to just schedule out at least 2 nights a week where I have nothing planned. And I'll spend those evenings cooking a cozy meal, reading, practicing hobbies, and just generally doing life-giving and rest-filled activities. And ever since doing that and really trying to integrate intentional times of rest in my schedule, what I found is that it actually makes me more productive and efficient in the entire rest of my week. Because I'm not always running life living on empty, and instead I'm regularly setting aside time to recharge. All right, but then number 7 is to challenge yourself. Let me ask you a question. Is there something in your life right now that you want to change? Well, let me tell you a secret. The best time to make that change is now. I find that often when we're wanting to make a change in our lives, we'll try to wait for some magical sign or event or maybe a new year as our sign that it's time to begin making that change. But there really is no better time than the present to start. And one of my favorite ways to kind of kickstart any change that you might want to make in your life is to basically set up a challenge for yourself. Write down your goal and just say, okay, for the next 30, 60, 90 days, however long you want, I'm going to commit to doing this every single day. And maybe it's that you want to read a chapter of a book, work out for 30 minutes, or drink a specific amount of water. Whatever your goal happens to be, there's something about creating a challenge out of it and gamifying it that not only makes it more fun, but also somehow makes it easier to stay on track, especially if you start telling friends or family about it. And this is actually something that I've done recently. Like I was sharing earlier, over the summer, I kind of slipped out of a handful of healthy habits, and I really wanted to get back on track with them. And so what I did was I basically just created a little challenge for myself. I picked 5 habits that I wanted to implement, wrote them down, and then asked Christopher to help keep me accountable with them. So for 61 days, so basically all of September and October, I wanted to commit to getting up at 6:30 a.m., working out for at least 30 minutes every single day, drinking at least 60 ounces of water, reading a chapter of a book, and sticking to a healthier meal plan that I kind of wrote down some guidelines for. So that's what I'm doing, and I'm in the midst of it right now, but I'd really just encourage you to think through maybe if there are some healthy habits that you want to implement, and how can you create a similar style challenge for yourself. This is really one of those things that helps make getting into a routine with specific healthy habits a lot more fun. If you're competitive, it kind of engages your competitive side a bit. I'm definitely fall into that category. But then also too, and what I think might be the most powerful element of them, is it really helps you to track your progress and to see the difference that you're making, even if you don't immediately feel it. And then number 8 is another really important one, and that's to limit your screen time. If you find yourself always defaulting to entertainment on screens, I really encourage you to try exploring other options. Don't get me wrong, I do really enjoy social media, YouTube, and a good TV show, but it can be all too easy for us to overconsume those. It's kind of funny, a lot of us will say things like we want to read more, we want to practice a specific hobby, or reach this specific goal. But what we often don't realize is that the reason why we feel like we don't have enough time to do any of those things is that we're spending all of that time staring at screens. So don't hear what I'm not saying. You don't need to go and throw out your phone or TV, but just be conscious of your social media and TV consumption, and remember that the best moments in life are never going to be found behind screens. And then 9 is to do a brain dump. If you've ever felt like there are just too many thoughts swirling around in your head to keep track of, that's a state I find myself in regularly. Brain dumps can be incredibly helpful. Between all of the various events, activities, to-dos, and reminders that come up in our lives daily, it can feel like a lot to keep track of. So one habit that I love to practice whenever I feel that overwhelm setting in is a brain dump. And to do this, all you need is a pen and a piece of paper, and then just start writing in kind of like a stream of consciousness style everything that comes to mind. Don't try to organize those thoughts. You can do that later. Just write down everything that comes to mind. Anything that you need to do, something you're trying to keep track of, maybe an event that you need to schedule, whatever it is, just write it down. Just kind of keep going until you've written down everything that comes to mind. And then once you've finished, look back at what you've written and then try to organize things by category and start taking action on them one by one. Try to batch schedule all of the meetings or appointments that you need to. Set aside an hour of time to kind of chip away at some of those smaller tasks that you can do in a shorter period of time and just do a lot of them at once. Before you know it, your life is going to be looking a whole lot more organized. But what that also does too is it relieves stress and that feeling of overwhelm, because you can physically look at that piece of paper and just signal to your brain, it's okay, we've got it, we're taking care of this. Okay, but then finally, let's end this with number 10, and that's to declutter your home. We're past the summer, but before the holidays, so right now really is a great time to set aside an afternoon or a day to really go through your house room by room and just to declutter what you're no longer using or loving. And doing regular declutters like this every 3 to 6 months really is one of the best ways that you can just easily and effortlessly keep clutter at bay in your home. Over time and as the seasons change, what we need and what we get value from really does change over time. And so I love just doing regular declutters so that you can go through and just ask yourself again, am I still using this item? Am I still loving it? And then if you aren't, passing it on to someone else who can get value from it. This is something that I've been doing for the past several years now, and it never ceases to amaze me how much every single season I have to declutter. So set aside some time, get rid of what you don't need, and there really is something so freeing about removing the things from our lives that are no longer adding value. It's like every time I drop off the bag at the donation store and there's like this weight lifted off of my shoulders. All right, well, we've made it to the end of our list, but I really hope that this video has given you some practical ideas on ways that you can improve your life starting today. And as I go from here, I really just want to leave you with some encouragement. Some of these changes can be significant, but they don't always happen overnight, so stick with it, and I know you've got this. But now I'd love to know, is there one or more of these habits that you want to apply in your own life? I'd love to hear about it, so be sure to let me know in the comments below. As always though, don't forget to give this video a like if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you haven't already, follow me on Instagram for more daily inspiration and updates, and until next time friends, I hope you have an amazing day.